All right, so here is our second lecture, the writing process. So often when we begin anything, we come up against some obstacles. And for writing, it's no different. There are some things that I'm calling non starters that can hinder you from getting your project up off the ground. The first one is not enough time. Time we often view as our worst enemy, and we have to begin to think about what is the biggest thing that I need to accomplish. And if it's for an assignment, or if it is something that you're writing for a client or for your boss, we have to put that first. It should be a high priority. There's no easy way to reorganize your time or reprioritize your responsibilities. However, it is possible to simplify the article preparation process, the writing piece that you're putting together. You can do this by spreading out the time into more manageable chunks for you to accomplish. Instead of one huge project all crammed into into one moment, break it up and figure out a more manageable way to complete smaller segments of the assignment or of the writing piece over a longer period of time. When we think about switching writing styles, I think for you, you're probably thinking about switching from APA to AP. But I want you to also think about different writing styles when it comes to writing to producers versus writing to a lay audience or consumers. A lot of people struggle with making writing more consumer oriented. When you're accustomed to writing within your own industry, jargon can be really difficult to abruptly switch gears on. So just be cognizant of how you're writing and the audience you're writing for. The angle or topic selection, start with an idea. Is there something you have a burning desire to write about, or maybe a certain publication that you want to get your piece published in? Once you've decided on your subject, the next step is to establish your premise for the piece that you're writing. Think about what is the point? Is there a theme that you're working towards? You should be able to sum up all of this in a sentence or two. An example might be have a working hypothesis for an article on a feedlot. Think about that 1 to 2 sentence that you can develop to help sum up everything in a nice, neat package. So this is an interesting one. What will others think? When you publish an article, sometimes you worry about your personal brand or the business, and thinking about maybe all the holes that you might have in your piece or the quality of the piece. And so oftentimes this will hinder us from starting the writing process or continuing the writing process. Sometimes our thoughts can be our own worst enemy when it comes to maybe being a perfectionist and never letting this writing process take off because you're afraid that it won't be good enough. Actually getting started, I think this is something that a lot of us might have a problem with. This can also be reclassified as procrastination. Earlier in this lecture, talked about the idea of chunking the steps into smaller pieces so that you can accomplish them over a longer period of time, which is a great technique. But when it comes to actually getting started, it can be a little difficult, especially for those procrastinators. Oftentimes, there are certain aspects of the writing process that we enjoy, and there are certain aspects that we don't enjoy. It's just like everything in life. I think when you look at your job or you look at school, there are things that you enjoy and things that you don't enjoy. Often we will front load everything that we enjoy doing and leave all the yucky stuff, the stuff that we don't get as much joy in doing, for the end. And when we front load our day with the good stuff and leave the bad stuff at the end, we lose motivation. So after we've done the fun stuff, the things we enjoy, we're faced with this huge chunk of responsibilities or tasks that we don't enjoy doing. It makes it much easier for you to say, I'll do that tomorrow, or I don't want to do that right now. That's when the procrastination hits. So to avoid this, I would implore you to think about creating intermittent pieces of joy throughout the pieces or chunks of less desirable activities. This is called the PREMAC principle. So the idea is that you start with something you enjoy. Once you've completed that small task or that segment of the larger task, you move on to something that is less enjoyable or less desirable. And once you finish that, you get a reward. And that reward would be something that is more enjoyable for you to do. So going through this, after you move through the less desirable activity, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, there's a reward, you complete that, and then move on to another less desirable activity. What's in it for me? Seeing the payoff. If there's not an evident payoff right away, this can be difficult. And so you really need to figure out if there is a good payoff and use that as motivation. And if you can't necessarily find one right away, spend that extra time to figure it out. So writing an article is definitely a process, and we're about to transition over to 4 steps in this process and go over them. I think they work. I think they work for me, and I hope that they'll work for you. So here are those 4 steps before you begin. Start a folder, start a list. Whatever helps you to get started thinking about a topic. Put it in a cloud so you can access it quickly. So if you have a thought or something like that, it's easily accessible, so you can contribute to it. But carrying it around with you will help. Help you get started, help you get ready. And so let's talk about that first step, which is research. There's really 3 purposes to research, and that's to reaffirm and expand your hypothesis. It also reveals that if you're on the wrong track and you need to start over. In the early stages, research provides enough information to help you block out the article. Blocking out means creating kind of like an outline. And then it fills the meat of your article. So information is gathered through things like interviews, reading, experts, finding resources on the web. And so it's really important that you have a good understanding of how to conduct research, especially online with the different search engines. And hopefully we've gone over enough the difference between popular press and scientific research journal articles. An outline. So after you've allowed the article topic to kind of simmer in your head for a while, and you've pulled together the necessary publications and research, you're kind of at this point that you're ready to develop an outline. It's important that you get your main thoughts down on paper. You must essentially select your main topic and your main point and your supporting points or ideas. Your main point should be what you want the reader to remember an hour after they've read the article. Keep in mind that we are consumers and we are very selfish. We are only interested in things that entertain us or tell us how to be healthier, wealthier, or more wise. If you cannot offer something to the reader that directly benefits them, you probably shouldn't be writing the article. Once you have decided what your main message is, it should be kind of downhill from there. You'll begin jotting down supporting points, developing a flow of thoughts, deciding on transitioning phrases, and then at that point, you don't necessarily want to start writing everything else. You're still developing this outline. All right, the draft. Drafts should be fun and easy because there's really no straightforward rules on developing these. Don't worry that the flow of your thoughts or the sentence structure may not be perfect yet. This is just trying to get as many ideas and quality ideas down on the paper as possible. The revision process is a little bit more intense. This should be the most difficult step. 75% of all revision is just eliminating words that you've already written. The remaining 25 steps of the revision process is improving the words that do remain. We think of this process as reduction and revising. And the reduction process, ask yourself, does this help move the piece forward? Can I say it another way? Is there a better word? Good messages do not depend on necessarily big words or grown-up words. Something short and concise will definitely do and is preferable. You also want to avoid redundant phrases. Things like "due to the fact that" is a great example. This is not easy, but the work is manageable if you break it down into smaller steps. Editing is not a mysterious or highly technical process. It simply means that you read your article very carefully, looking for typos, looking for grammatical errors, things like repetitive words, awkward phrases is a must. Everyone should kind of know this already, but you can let your writing rest for a little bit and come back at it with fresh eyes. That always helps as well. So hopefully these steps were beneficial. I hope that you will employ some of these things, especially if it comes to procrastination. You want to take a good step back and evaluate what are those things that are causing you distractions or causing you to procrastinate. Are you chunking all the good stuff in the front and leaving the bad stuff for the end of the day? That's a huge point of contention for a lot of procrastinators out there. All right, so that's it for this week. Be sure you take a look at the 5 quiz questions and get those answered before next week. Thanks.